The Ric Flair Show.
My name's Ric Flair.
Woo! Woo! To be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo! Right here, I'm the man.
The 16-time world champion.
Woo! Back behind the mic and telling it like it is.
Woo!
If you're not carrying the big gold, you're second best no matter what you tell yourself.
I'm the best.
Y'all playing catch-up ball to the nature boy.
And now, your hosts of The Ric Flair Show, Ric Flair and Conrad Thompson.
Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the nature boy, Ric Flair, along with my co-host, Conrad Thompson. Welcome to the Ric Flair Show. Conrad Thompson, as you know, is the second wealthiest man in the state of Alabama. He owns the Conradison. He owns First Family Mortgage. He's in 80 cities, kids. 80 cities. Let's do it. Let's say one thing for Conrad. Woo! 35 years old, making $10 million a month. What's wrong with that, guys? Hey, man, how are you, buddy?
Well, I think you think I'm doing better than I really am. So business is looking up, man.
Hey, you know what? Like Ray Stevens said, if you're going to tell a story, tell it the way you want to.
Well, I'm not mad at it, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing exactly that today on the Ric Flair Show. Let's get into it. It's the top 4 stories, and it's brought to you by RicFlairShow.com's online store. They've got some really cool T-shirts over there now. It's Dr. Woo, it's Wooters, it's Space Mountain, and more. Right now, brand new T-shirt selection you need to check out on the merchandise link of RicFlairShow.com. All right, Rick, let's get into it. Story number 1, Cody Rhodes can't use the name Rhodes outside of WWE. Did you expect that? This came out over the weekend on the internet. It's everywhere. And I want to know your take. Did you expect this, and do you think it's fair to Cody or respectful to the Rhodes family? Because Dusty had that name a long time ago.
You know, first of all, I did not hear that, and I'm not sure how to comment on that. I would think that they would let him use their name Rhodes, but, I mean, once again, I'm in that position where I can't really voice an opinion. Yeah, I didn't know that. I had not heard that story. I mean, unless I'm with you, I'm not keeping up with it. So
the scoop is, if you use the name prior to coming over, like say CM Punk did, then CM Punk can use that name when he leaves because he had prior use. But Cody's legal name isn't technically Rhodes, and he debuted as Rhodes on WWE television. So technically, him calling himself Rhodes, he owns. But I sure did think a special concession would be made here because of who his father was.
Well, I would have thought so, too, but you never know. There's probably more to that than we know. I know that he was upset with ESPN and TMZ. I did hear about that, and I guess they got an apology because they played the 911 voicemail from Michelle. And then I guess... I can't remember what happened on ESPN, but at any rate, I think that if Cody made the phone call on a personal note, that they would work that out for him. That's how strongly I feel about their respect for his dad.
Well, I hope so, and I think it may be looking that way that they're going to try to work something out. But I'm also surprised to hear this. I don't know if you've seen this, if you didn't hear the Rhodes news yet. He's going to be the first guy ever, the first to do it, who will appear on both Ring of Honor television and TNA television at the same time. Normally, those companies don't really allow, their stars to kind of cross-mingle, but Cody has gotten the deal done. Do you think that's a big deal?
I think it's great. I mean, here's the deal. He spent how many years? 8 years on the WWE roster, or 9 years? And, when you've had that exposure, it's a great opportunity, and who wouldn't jump on that? And I'm pretty sure he's able to dictate his own terms. Did he wrestle Kurt Angle yet? Was that last weekend?
Yes, he has wrestled Kurt Angle. He's wrestled Chris Hero. He's wrestled Sami Callihan. He's doing really big stuff, and if you haven't been following along, you need to go ahead and follow him on Twitter. You don't want to miss him. He's really doing some big-time stuff. It's kind of a throwback to the old territorial days, and that's certainly what he's looking for. And if you're listening to this show, that's probably right up your alley. So throw him a follow on Twitter so you can keep up with what he's up to.
Yeah, I can't say enough good about him. He's an awesome young man, And I am confident that he'll ride this out, make a good living. In a year, he'll be back with the WWE. He's that good.
Well, let's talk about it on story number 2. Over the weekend, rumors came out that Paige is going to be leaving the WWE shortly. Of course, this started with your good friend, Mr. Dave Meltzer. Do you think this is true, and what would you think about this decision if so? It seems kind of an odd time right here when the Divas Revolution is really starting to take foothold, about a year into the thing, and now maybe she's looking to leave. She's really young, but it's on the heels of the Del Rio news that he'll be leaving. Where do you fall on this?
Well, I actually called Alberto yesterday. He hasn't called me back because I wanted to have him on our podcast. I'm sure he'll get back to me. I don't know where he is right now, but I don't know. I mean, I think Paige is a lovely girl, and she's worked hard and done well. But sometimes when you're young, you make decisions that aren't good for your future. So. Fortunately, my decisions that were bad were all domestic, not about my career. few bad wives and not too many bad wrestling decisions. So I don't know. I hate to see her put it aside because I don't know what I don't understand totally, as we've discussed several times. I don't understand what the suspensions were for. Why? I mean, there's so many women suspended right now, or I think it's Eva Marie, right? Is suspended.
That's right.
Paige is suspended, and Del Rio is all suspended, right?
That's right.
And I don't know what for or anything else. I'm a big fan of Del Rio. I think he's a hell of a hand. I think Paige is an excellent performer, and I just hope that they take a long look. I mean, Del Rio can make a living anywhere, as we know. He's very popular. I thought he added a lot to the roster, but I don't think he was happy with his position. So that happens. I think it's very important that people understand if you don't have an ego in this business, you're not going anywhere. And that's just where it is. And you're either going to be complacent and happy with your position, or you're going to be upset and talk about it. You know what I mean? So I've seen that over the years in 100 different examples. And our guest today will elaborate on stuff like that. But position and ego are everything, and I'm proud of Del Rio for sticking up for himself because he has options.
Absolutely.
And plus he just had another year of WWE TV, phenomenal exposure, which can last for a long time for him. So I hope Paige makes the right decision too. But if he's leaving, maybe she just wants to spend time with him, and then. I'm sure she can make a living too. Are you kidding? It's a lot of TV exposure. She's a 2-time champion, and there's a lot right out there. There's a lot out there with the independent promoters, the good ones, not the bad ones, but the good ones that make the right decisions will offer the right kind of money and book in the right kind of arena. So the money is there. I mean, it is. Trust me.
Well, let's get to story number 3. We're talking about options. We're talking about life after WWE. CM Punk is going to fight this weekend in Cleveland for the UFC. How do you think he'll do, and will you be watching?
Actually, I'm going to try and watch. I'll be working in New York, but here's my take on him. He always treated me great and showed me a lot of respect, and I kind of judge people by how they treat me as an individual. I don't like the fact that he used social media about a year ago to wear out Triple H. Because, if you're wearing out Triple H, you're wearing me out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's my friend, and I didn't like that. So, I wish him well. I don't know enough about it to predict a winner, but I hope that going forward that he will think twice about, rather than, in the old days, we had a problem with somebody, we drove to the arena and talked to them face up. Social media is no way to air an individual problem, as you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
And last year he was wearing Hunter out. You know what I mean? Like, what did Hunter do wrong? Hunter's not the boss. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, I just, he treats me great, and I don't have anything bad to say about him. He's always been very polite to me, but, it's just, so the social media can exhaust people, and it can be hurtful, as you know.
Do you think he wins this weekend?
I don't know. We had Dana on the show. Dana said the kid is fighting is pretty tough, right?
He is pretty tough. He's had one fight in the UFC, won in pretty dominant fashion. Mickey Gall will be taking him on this weekend. I'll be tuned in, and I actually tuned in to Top Story number 4. So, Rick, over the weekend, the WWE announced they were going to release what they called hidden gems, and it was a lot of long-lost stuff that had never been posted on the network before. And the holy grail, so to speak, amongst tape traders for years and years was posted. They called it the Last Battle of Atlanta, and it made its way to the WWE this week. How big of a deal was Buzz Sawyer and Tommy Rich in Georgia in 1983? Can you kind of put that in perspective for people who are listening?
I mean, first of all, I was there. I saw all of it. Buzz Sawyer was a phenomenal performer. He just had so many social issues that it caught up with him finally, obviously. But I just saw Tommy. Tommy was a huge star, huge commodity, and I wouldn't say with the greatest wrestling matches, but back then, blood was everything. Tommy was good at it. Buzz was crazy, and they had some great matches. And make no mistake about it, and for that generation, that era, Tommy Rich was one of the biggest stars in the history of the business. It's sad that he's not in the position he should be right now, but it's not because he didn't work hard. I mean, I every time I worked with Tommy Rich, and he could wrestle an hour, trust me, it was sold out. I don't care where it was. He was a phenomenal performer. He was over with the chicks big time. He was like Ricky Morton, but a little bit bigger. And Buzz Sawyer was just a raw-boned, tough kid that could really perform. I mean, Buzz was crazy. One of the greatest things I've ever saw in my life was in Charles, West Virginia. He and the Sheik went into a bedroom at the Ramada Inn, and they wrestled for an hour, man. It was insanity. Arn and I kept buying, go back to the bar buying drinks, come back and see who won.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I get a lot of stories like that, man.
Do you have any match recommendations for people who maybe are being introduced? We have a lot of younger listeners, folks who maybe aren't super familiar with Sawyer or Rich. Can you recommend any other matches to them to check out or any other opponents?
They probably don't want to see the match with me and Sawyer from Portland, Oregon, where he ate a Burger King Whopper an hour before our match, and I told him he'd be sick, and 30 minutes into the match, he threw up for 15 minutes. Yeah, you can't eat before you work with me, kid, not for an hour. I drove him crazy with that story. Right in the middle of 30 minutes in, he walked over and threw up. So I probably don't want to see that, but nonetheless, he was a great performer. I mean, he's not going to be one of the Hall of Fame guys because of conduct issues and that, but he worked hard, and he, was a tough kid. So what can you say? I mean, it was, but he and Tommy, I watched that. It was what made it so good, for the fans that are going to enjoy it now, like the ones that like to go back and look at yesteryear, it was a lot of violence. So
there was a lot of violence. I saw it for the first time this morning. A lot of blood early in the match, and then a special stipulation of the match. They had Precious Paul Ellering suspended above the cage in a smaller cage, kind of like you guys did years later with J.J. Dillon. And then afterwards, there was a little retribution, and Ole Anderson was involved, and it was a fun time. So go check it out. It's under the Collections tab on the WWE Network under Hidden Gems.
And you can get that for $9.99. Is that correct, Conrad?
It is, and the Ric Flair Show is free. And on the other side of this break, we've got one of the biggest stars in the history of the business. But if you want to give us $9.99 each time, listen, please send it in care of Conrad Thompson. Yes, please. Send it to the Conradison, cash only, small bills. We'll be right back on the Ric Flair Show.
Woo! Woo! You're listening to the Ric Flair Show.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time
The Ric Flair Show.
You know, by now it's probably pretty obvious when you listen to this show that I am not a professional broadcaster, but I do claim to know a thing or two about helping people save money, and that's what we do at First Family Mortgage. We show families how to keep more of their own money. We find more and more that families don't really understand what the end of their loan looks like. Of course, everybody knows exactly what day their payments due on and how much to make it for, and maybe they even know their interest rate, but they probably don't know what the end looks like. How old are you going to be when you pay your house off? How old are your kids going to be? Does that line up with what your retirement plans are? Will your kids get stuck with student loans because you couldn't afford to pay college tuition and a house payment? You shouldn't have to choose. You should get a better mortgage. First Family can go ahead and get you a better deal right now at 1fmc.com. We can help you get a lower payment. We can shorten your term. We can get rid of your PMI, get you a better rate, even help you get rid of your credit card debt. No matter what your situation is, First Family can make it just a little bit better, and you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to check it out. So go to 1fmc.com right now and find out how much money you can save for free. NMLS number 65084, Equal Housing Lender. Now back to more Ric Flair Show.
Goodness gracious, quick balls of fire!
Woo! The Ric Flair Show. Don't miss a minute of The Ric Flair Show. Subscribe on iTunes now.
Nature Boy Ric Flair, the heavyweight champion of the world.
Custom-made clothes.
And any woman in the world I want. Just like that.
And now, more Ric Flair.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is one of these guys in the business that I've known over the years that I had chemistry with second to none. He and his partner, along with Arn Anderson, Sting, Dusty Rhodes, Lex Luger, Barry Windham, Nikita Koloff, who was lucky to be there. These guys brought chemistry and drew more money than any tag team in the history of the business. I'm talking about the Road Warriors, and today our guest is my good friend for so many years, Joe Laurinaitis, Animal. How are you, man?
Hey, Naitch, what's up, my friend? How are you?
Thanks. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Just, travel around the country doing these Comic-Cons that I see you at every now and then.
Yeah. So are you married now?
I'm close enough to it, man. I've been with the same girl now for about 5 years, so it's I probably won't be getting there any day.
That's miraculous.
Yeah. Hey, how about yourself, bud?
You're just like me, man. Hell, I've been with Wendy 4.5 years. Are you kidding me? Jesus.
Wow, that's great, man. That's great.
Yeah, I'm very happy. No one ever saw it coming, but it's worked out great. So Joe.
Hey, it's always nice when you find a great woman.
What's that, sir?
I said it's always nice when you find a great woman.
Yeah, it is. God, I've looked for a long time.
Well, I think the problem is you found too many great women, Rick. I think that was the issue. You found too many great ones.
Yeah, Joe knows them all, too.
Yeah, back over the years, there was so much styling and profiling going on.
Yeah, God.
It's hard to keep track.
So, Joe, should we tell them about the flight from San Juan to Portland with the Delta flight, the American flight attendants that came to the hotel?
Let me address this flight from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Portland, Oregon. We're going from working for Carlos Colon all the way to work for the great Don Rowan's Grass and Soul in Portland, Oregon, right? Here we are. Now, it's basically the whole middle section of a big DC-10, and it's just Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, Road Warrior Hawk, Road Warrior Animal, and Precious Paul Ellering. So, needless to say, on a long 8-hour journey like that, we have the night off for that night. For some reason, we have to work the next night. So probably the worst thing you can do is put us all on the same flight together, because when you do, libations will be flowing rapidly. Let's just put it that way. And back then, you didn't have all these strict FAA rules and regulations, right?
Yep.
So after about 4 hours into the flight, Nate goes, "Hey, Animal, reach up there and grab my bag." And I said, "Which one?" He goes, "The one with the robe." Oh, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, no, I know exactly where it's going to go. I said, it ain't going to be good. It's going to be funny. It ain't going to be good. Needless to say, Ric Flair takes the garment bag with the robe into the restroom. I'm out. Nothing on but alligator shoes, his socks, and that darn robe. And at the end,
I used the bathroom instead of the telephone booth.
Yeah, but the size of it was like Superman taking off, Clark Kent taking off his stuff, and out comes Superman. That's what it was like. All of a sudden, the door opened up, the walk started, and all you heard was "woo," and it was on after that.
Well, the best part of the story is, so the flight attendants come back and party was at the hotel, and the one chick wanted Mike to paint her up.
Yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning, the flight attendants walked around the hotel floor so hammered, completely naked, with road wear paint on her face.
Yeah.
I think you'd gone to bed by that time, but Mike was relentless. That chick fell in love with Mike. Jesus Christ. He put the paint on, then he put a dot in the middle of her forehead like she was a Hindu. Oh, yeah. Flight attendants were fun back then. Now it's a little different.
Well, I mean, a good reason probably they are. Nothing to do with the wrestlers, by the way. But I mean, hey, today's flying today is way different than it was flying 20 years ago.
Well, you think? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know, right?
And you have to be very careful about your conduct. As I found out in the Boston airport about 2 months ago.
Yeah, what was that? I heard about that. I heard bits and pieces. What was that all about?
I don't know. The guy at TSA had a problem with me. What the story is, I had been out with Dean Ambrose all night long, and I had been gone from home for 34 days on a European tour, and I should have realized when I fell over the bed when I woke up in the morning to get ready to go to the airport that I probably should have taken another flight. I rolled into TSA looking as old way I could look.
Yeah. Listen, you know the way the next morning is going to go. I remember a few times in the Ramada Renaissance at the Atlanta airport. World champion, the greatest single world champion of our time that we'll ever see, in the luggage cart and wheeling them up to the room and saying, "Stay in your room."
That was me?
Yeah.
God, I forgot all this stuff.
It's almost as bad as my partner Hawk. He put Hawk to that after being on about 10 inebriated pills he took, and then he'd be down in the lobby 20 minutes later again saying, "Hey."
I know. Yeah, God. I know. Well, Joe, I just want to say this on a personal note. I mean, I don't think people understand totally, and we could talk forever, but man, the Road Warriors and the Four Horsemen. I mean, I'm telling you, Conrad, we were in Philadelphia one night, and Joe and Hawk painted up Dusty, and it was me, Arn, and Ole. 10,000 sold out at the Civic Center. This is when we were going head up with those guys, WWF, when they were at the Spectrum, WWE now. And when Dusty came down with that paint, I mean, I remember, I think I've told this story before, I've never heard a crowd so crazy in my life. Remember that Charles Barkley was sitting ringside, and we didn't have to even. Ole said, "Let's cut these guys off." I said, "Why would you cut them off? They haven't sat down yet since they walked out to the ring." Do you remember that, Joe?
Oh yeah, Philly is such a great town for wrestling to begin with.
Yeah.
And Rick was right. If you could feel, I don't think that you are ever going to see that happen again in the wrestling business, period. And it was just an era of the wrestling business. Here, you have the greatest faction of four guys together in the Four Horsemen. Then you have Hawk and I, who have been crowned as the greatest tag team ever. Then Dusty Rhodes, one of the best single performers ever, all in the same match. For me and Hawk, I can speak for Hawk now that he's gone and everything else, but, it was like going to school for Hawk and I. It was back in the day where we just shut our mouth and let the champion say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And the people went absolutely crazy. It was, we really didn't have to do anything, man. When you're in the ring with four guys who the people really, and it's a testament to how great they did their job. When guys do their job phenomenal, people wanted to see them get their butt kicked. Not because they hated them. They just knew, okay, here goes the equalizers. The great equalizers are going to get you now. And it was just, for us, it was such an easy job. It wasn't even like going to work every night. It was like going to play.
No, it really was. I mean, and my God, and we must have worked literally, I'm not exaggerating, Conrad, over the years, we probably worked 1,500 times.
Wow.
Because the War Games went on for I don't know how many years. That was 40 nights in a row or 42. And believe me, you got the Road Warriors, Mike, Joe, then you got Arn, me, Barry Windham, I forget who all else. We were staying at the Tropicana in Vegas for that 5-day run. Remember, Joe? Oh, my God. It was exhausting. Then we'd stop at Kansas City on the way back for one more. Oh, man, we've had so much fun over the years. But chemistry. So, Joe, let's talk about the War Games, man. How cool was that?
Yeah. Oh, man, the War Games is probably one of the single best invention matches that I've ever been involved with. I mean, here you got two rings side by side with a cage over top of both rings. And I think the first two guys went in for Rick, how many minutes? 4 minutes or so? And then every 2 minutes after that, two more guys, another guy went in, another guy went in.
The first period was 5 minutes. Remember, it was always Arn and Dusty.
Yeah. Yeah. That's because if it was Hawk and I would have thrown up after that 5 minutes.
But we always left Mike for last. I don't know why. He killed everybody when he came.
I remember the first War Games. We did, right? Here we're all in the ring together, and Hawk's the last guy to get in. Now, if you ever seen a cheetah or a Black Panther at the zoo who's caged up, and it's just pacing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, it seemed like for hours, that was Hawk. And when Hawk came in the ring, all I remember hearing out of 3 of the 4 horsemen's mouths was, F this blank, because Hawk knocked out Luger, and then he knocked out Arm. He hit Tully in the teeth, and then he nails Nature Boy. I mean, Hawk pretty much,
it was brutal, Conrad. We deserved to pay a bonus after each one of those. Then the one in Atlanta, the Animal lifted up JJ on his shoulders, the Hawk jumped off the top rope where the cage wasn't even enough, and it broke JJ's shoulder.
No. I know. I told Hawk, don't jump, don't, and I couldn't even say don't go.
I know. He didn't care. He did his own thing. Make no mistake about it.
Things happen in that match. I mean, that match was still to this day probably one of the most exciting matches in wrestling history.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm not saying that the guys today aren't great performers. There's a lot of great performers in our business today, but I don't think, like you say, the chemistry, because everything's done month to month now instead of having every 6 months to do something. The chemistry was just greater. I mean, the fans got a more invested interest in their product that they like. That's all.
Yeah, it's funny because Bradshaw, when Ascension first made their debut, right? And this is one of the things that you always want to laugh about or think, boy, that's either a shot or it's like, and Ascension makes their debut on Raw, and Bradshaw goes, and these guys think they're the Road Warriors?
Yeah, I know. I heard that. I actually texted him when he was doing ringside promos on it. He starts laughing on it. I actually said
Bradshaw?
that. Thanks for the plug. I texted Bradshaw right after he said it on TV. I was watching with my grandson, and I said, hey, thanks. He went LOL back, I mean, hey, it's, I guess it's the greatest form of flattery when someone tries to imitate you. But it's like I've always said in this business, right? If I'm doing an interview and I want to try to become the greatest world champion of all time, I'm not going to get out there and say, hey, Ric Flair, you were a joke. no, I'm going to say, Ric Flair, you are the greatest champion that has ever lived. I'm going to do what I can to at least try to fill one of those shoes. I'm not going to go out there and say, hey, Road Warriors, if you're here, we're going to slap your face. Come on. The wrestling fans are going to go, are you kidding me? Well, Road Warriors would have you for lunch and spit you out and then eat you again because they don't like you. I mean, it's just that kind of attitude. And I think that's one thing that has to be changed a little bit, the respect factor. There's certain guys like Rick, and I'm not saying it's on the phone with you, but you, Bruno Sammartino, Andre, even Hulk Hogan, don't rip on those guys. Because you're never going to be, our business will never see those kind of guys ever again. So let them be off in infamy in the legend status, in the hierarchy of our business, And I think, and I'm glad to say, the Road Warriors are kind of in that status for tag team. You let us alone, man. Leave us alone.
Most definitely. You guys were, the biggest joke we had every night was, we'd go, who's going to get the Road Warrior pop tonight?
Yeah, I know.
Even to this day, when I've gone to the ring, I'll be standing there and grilling. I said, when you guys hear this to the young guys, I'm going out there tonight and getting a Road Warrior pop.
That's funny. I remember one time, and I know Michael Hayes said this on our Road Warrior video that we did that sells for WWE, and he thought I was actually serious when I said this to him. I looked at him one day, and there was always between the Freebirds, with the tag teams. I don't know how it was the singles match, Rick. With the tag teams, there's always little hidden jabs. We were always jabbing with the Steiner brothers. Steiner brothers were jabbing back. The Freebirds would jab, we would jab back. And I said to Michael one night, I said, hey, you hear that Road Warrior pop?
Yeah, no.
And I said that just to jab at them because, I know they were wrestling probably wrestling the Monkeys or somebody that night. You know what I mean? So I would just
the Monkeys. Oh, wow. I hope Michael Hayes hears
we're
this.
In the ring with the horse. We're in the ring with the four horsemen. They were wrestling the Monkeys. But I was just trying to jab back at him, and he thought I was serious, like, boy, animals conceited. That wasn't the case at all. Everybody that knows me knows I was just joking around. So.
No, I know. It's good because, it's good. Back then the guys jousted, and the guys had fun. Now they take it so damn serious. Jesus Christ, you can't say anything, man. They either go hide in a corner and cry or just get upset. You can't have the fun and the relationships where, think about the joust between Arn and Lex Luger. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I know.
Arn would say, Luger would call Arn a human Super Bowl, right? And Arn would say, he'd call Luger the orthodontist dream. He said, if I had those front teeth, I could make 2 pearl handle revolvers up.
Yeah. I remember one time, the toilet bowl scrubber, the big huge ones. Hawk came in one time and said, "Hey, Luger, I found your toothbrush." We were able to joust each other and kid around with each other about that kind of stuff back then. Today, my Lord, well, we must have joked around too much because even after Hawk's passing, Hawk's been gone 13 years, I must have joked around too much. I've not done one WWE Fan Fest or done any appearances for the company or gone on any tours because I guess I joked too much, I guess.
Because I what?
I guess I must have joked around too much or something. Or maybe,
no,
maybe
I don't think that. You know what it is? They got, because I've been there a lot recently, they have so much going on. And now they have the, as you know, they split the brands. I mean, this, and then plus NXT is added on. It's a lot. But no, I wouldn't take that personal at all. I mean, your induction into the Hall of Fame was phenomenal. That was a great year. I see Paul Ellering all the time now. He's managing one of the teams.
Yeah, I saw
NXT.
Paul,
did you know that?
Paul, yeah. Paul and I still do appearances together. I saw Paul down. I just saw him a couple weeks ago, and I know he's doing the team. Of course, like everything else, everybody's always sending me texts and comparing them. I say, hey, listen, man, young guys got to start somewhere in the wrestling business, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, Conrad, you must have 1,000 questions. I mean, this guy is one of your biggest fans, Joe,
Absolutely.
and he's very knowledgeable about wrestling. So, Conrad, shoot away, man.
Well, I wanted to ask about Ole Anderson. Ole is a guy who has taken a lot of credit for your early breaks in the business, and he's a pretty controversial figure. Do you have any fun stories about working with Ole, or can you tell us what that was like?
Well, I mean, you know, Hawk and I, as well as Ravishing Rick Rude and Barry Darsow, we owe Ole our careers. I mean, you know, Ole came to the bar at Grandma B's. He was a good friend of Eddie Sharkey, who was the bartender there, who trained Jesse the Body Ventura. And, you know, when Eddie was telling us he's going to do a wrestling camp and he knows Ole Anderson, we all thought Eddie was full of crap, you know. But then we found out he did train Jesse Ventura because Jesse told him himself. And, you know, and I got one Ole story I can tell you, I guess. I guess one time, well, there's a couple good ones, I guess. You know, one time, you know, when I first went down there as a road warrior by myself, okay, there was a big buyout going on with Jim Barnett and Ole Anderson with Georgia Championship Wrestling. So Ole says, I'm going to send you this guy, Jim Crockett, North Carolina for 2 months, and I'll bring you back. I said, okay, great. I'm a dumb kid. You know, I'm thinking, you know, when somebody says 1 or 2 months, they need 1 or 2 months for coming back. Well, I ended up going to the Carolinas, which I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I got in the ring with guys like Ric Flair. You know, it was a TV match where I had to tap out with a figure four, but I was in there, and Jack Briscoe, Jack Briscoe let me slam him one time on TV, and so did Ricky Steamboat, and you know, I got to learn. I was only in the business for 1 or 2 months, but my point is, I was there for 2 or 3 months working in the Carolinas, and I remember making $150 working 9 times that week.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, how in the Lord am I going to pay child support? How am I going to do anything? So you can imagine after that 3 months, I went into Jim Crockett's office and I said, hey, Jim Crockett, I said, Mr. Crockett, I said, you know, because I called everybody Mr. Crockett the way you should in this business back then when you're a young kid. I said, listen, I can't do anything with this, and I can't make any money like this. And he goes, Joe, I can't help it. I said, well, thanks for the opportunity. And I actually quit wrestling and went home. And Ole called me on the phone, and I literally told Ole, I said I was going to kill him. I was going to kick his ass, knock his teeth out, everything. I'm going to kill him. I said, because you made me starve. I lost my cars. I lost furniture. I sold everything to pay bills and everything else. He goes, hold on. And then he happened to show one day at the Grandma B's, the bar in Minneapolis, that Eddie was there, and he showed him this picture. He goes, I've already seen that picture of Joe. And Eddie says, no, that's not Joe. That's Mike. And he says, you mean to tell me there's 2 of these guys? He says, yeah. He goes, I'm going to bring them down on my Road Warriors. So Rick Rude and I and Hawk are walking. There was a place in Minnesota. Rick, I don't know if you remember this place called the Jolly Troll. It's a smorgasbord.
Of course.
On Highway. Okay, we used to eat there every day for lunch because, A, it was cheap and we were power lifters, and that's all we could afford, right? So the phone rings, and we're told, Rude, leave it alone. Rude's just some bitch calling it, because Rich always had girls calling him all the time because he's a real good guy, and Rude was a male dancer part-time back then, the whole works, right? No, I got to answer. I said, man, let it go. So we take off, and he comes back, and he goes, you're not going to believe who that was. And we said, who was it? He goes, it's Ole Anderson. Joe, he wants you and I to come down tomorrow. And Mike, too. Bam, that's how the Road Warriors and Ravishing Rick Rude got started. Boom, right there like that. And brought us down there, and we went down there, and as you can imagine my look on my face. I go down there in Georgia Championship Wrestling back there at CNN Towers, and all of a sudden I go in there, and I'm looking. There is Tito Santana. There is Sergeant Slaughter. There's Tommy Rich. There's Dusty Rhodes. There's who else? There's Buzz Sawyer. There's Dick Murdoch. There's Paul Orndorff. All these guys we were seeing, they were great wrestlers. And we're going, Hawk and I are going, holy crap. You know, I guess he made it. And from that point on, Ole was true to his word, and he kept his word with us. So, yeah, I mean, you know, that was one Ole Anderson story. The other one with Ole, and tell you what kind of guy Ole is, it was kind of strange. You know, Rick's a big family guy. I know he was close to his mom and dad and everything else. I was close to my parents and everything else. Ole cared so much about this business. I think when his dad had passed away, I went to him and said, hey, man, sorry for your dad. When you going home to the funeral? He goes, I'm not going home to the funeral. And he goes, well, I said, why aren't you going home to the funeral? He goes, what can I do for him? He's gone. But that was kind of how hard-nosed Ole was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, he was pretty insensitive family-wise. But, I met you guys in Minneapolis Airport. It was you and Mike and Rude, and you were with Eddie. And I was coming through the Minneapolis airport for some reason. I think maybe I was going up to see Megan. And you guys were on your way. Do you remember that, the first time we all met?
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah, you guys, they said, yeah, we're going to be going to Atlanta. I said, man, because here were these three big guys. This is before they had their gimmick. And then I don't know who thought of the paint and all that. But, I mean, well, of course, Conrad, you saw it. They were the shit. I mean, it was... What a deal. It's so easy to work with. Not only did they have their persona that was unusual, but they could work. Mike and Joe could work. I mean, and that's in this time and day or any time of day to have a great gimmick and be able to work is something that's far and few between. And talk. I mean, well...
I think that's one thing that, with Hawk and I, Conrad, that helped us as a team is I was more your serious guy. You know what I mean? I was like the buck stops here type person and everything else. And then you had Hawk, who was totally off the wall, and you never really knew what was going to come out of his mouth next. Which I think balanced us out. And you had Paul Ellering, who kind of wrapped everything up in a nice little bow. But don't let Flair fool you here now. Yes, Hawk and I were successful, and we could do a lot of things in the ring that a lot of real big guys weren't normally used to doing. But if we didn't have great guys in the ring that would help you learn your craft and teach you along the way, like Ric Flair, and I've always said this to the day I'll die, is that Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard was one of the greatest tag teams ever that's underrated in the wrestling business. We learned a lot from those guys on when and your timing of doing things and getting over. And, I think not losing reality and staying in touch with the reality of the fans. Conrad, like yourself, you're a fan. So when you start insulting the fans, that's when you lose them.
Right.
And Hawk and I are a product of the fans. So that's what helped us stay over. And when you have guys like Flair and Anderson and Blanchard that know what the fans want to see, it makes your job so much easier when you're out there.
Yeah, well, it was easy for us, I'm telling you, because if you think about it, they could be rolling, beating the crap out of us, and something you don't see anymore. I mean, I actually wonder why, but Hawk would press slam me and press slam Arn, and in would come Joe, he'd press slam us, and Tully, we'd all take the bumps and all that. You don't even see that stuff anymore, and boom, they'd be kicking our ass, and all of a sudden Arn would hit one of them with the spine breaker, or he'd hit him with a DDT, man, and when one of them went down, after all the momentum, I mean, Conrad, I can't tell you how easy it was to perform. I mean, because when one of those guys went down, which nobody ever thought any night was ever going to happen, but it happened, obviously, every night, but when we cut them off, man, you talk about people that were on the edge of their seats. And they sold and sold and sold, and we went to the comeback, and they went home, and we did the job, and we all got drunk.
Well, I know, right? And that's what I was saying.
I don't think we ever won a match, did we?
Well, that's what I was saying. For like Hawk and I, it was a piece of cake because, I mean, imagine going out there and you have this match, you're press slamming them. I think one time I had Tully in a press slam. I think Rick came up with the idea, I'm going to clothesline you from behind on your leg. And when he clotheslined my knee, people actually thought he blew out my knee.
I hooked it with a shoulder to knee. Yeah.
Whatever it was that the fact that we were invisible for the first 10 minutes, and now Ogren's down holding his leg, and those guys were like three pit bulls on it. It's like, oh, there's that piece of meat, let's go get it. Type of attitude.
And you sold it like that. I mean, that's the thing. And we keep you guys in there 10, 12 minutes, getting the heat back and forth, and doing stuff that was logic, not trying to do anything where you're in the corner, ducking 25 clotheslines or anything. Just logical stuff. And then, boy, in came the comeback, and wow. I mean, and when it was Dusty with him, you couldn't hear. You couldn't hear in the arena, Conrad. When Dusty and the Road Warriors were together, there were a lot of combinations with Nikita and Sting and Luger and that, but when Dusty was with the Road Warriors against three of us, it was insanity.
Yep.
So I do want to ask, since we're talking about Dusty, we like to talk about Dusty a lot on this show, of course, and everybody remembers he was a six-man tag champ with the Road Warriors, and then later had the famous spike in the eye segment that ultimately led to Dusty leaving the promotions. What were you guys' memories of how that went down and the backlash that it brought?
Well, it's funny. I still hear about that spike. And I still have that spike in my house here. I hear about it every time I go on the road, because it wasn't so much. I think it was a combination at the time that the way Dusty sold that spike and the way I was hammering that spike to him, that people went, "Holy crap! He's trying to take out his eye," and Dusty's selling it like he's taking out my eye. And it wasn't just that. I think, Nate, you'll probably agree, Conrad, you hit a great point here. It wasn't about, in today's terms, about me or Hawk getting our shine in or Dusty getting his shine in. We knew there was a time and place for everything in the wrestling business. It wasn't, the wrestling business back then wasn't all about tit for tat. It'll come, let it build. The climax will finally happen, right? So when we did that, people actually thought Dusty got his eye taken out. And I think it's a testament to the way Dusty sold it. I mean, Dusty was one of the greatest guys in the wrestling business. I'm going to say that right now. He not only was a great friend, I mean, Rick knew him a lot more years than I did, but with Hawk and I mean, they would be editing shows, and I would go in just to watch how Dusty would edit the show as being a producer of the show. And, "Animal, what do you want in here? Get out of here," and he'd let me sit in there and do it. And, he'd call Hawk and I his babies or his pit bulls. It's, man, I know Rick misses Dusty. I miss Dusty, man. Dusty was a great human being. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And, I mean, anytime anybody leaves a promotion, it's for their own benefit and for their own self-preservation. I mean, you really like to be able to stay. It's like the NFL. You like to stay with one team the whole time, but in today's world, you're never going to do it.
Yeah. No, he was, I mean, first of all, on top of being a phenomenal performer, he was innovative as innovative and as smart about the business as anybody I've ever known. I mean, if you think about all the things from Flair for the Gold to the War Games to, Clash of Champions, all that stuff, that came all from Dusty. So, I mean, I can't say enough about him.
Hey, when they came up, Rick, with the idea, I hear about this all the time too. When I wrestled you for the belt and Hawk wrestled you for the belt, everybody went around the summer of Great American Bashes trying to take your title away. I mean, that's history. I mean, would you have like 60 title defenses one summer? I mean, who does that anymore? Nobody does that. Nobody does that.
No, I can tell you, I wrestled you in Cincinnati in the ballpark, and I wrestled Hawk in a single match in Long Island.
Philly.
Remember? Was it Philly? Okay. Philly? You and I were Philly?
No, Hawk and you were in Philly. I was in Cincinnati.
Okay, it's okay. That was pretty close. I think I also wrestled Mike one time in Long Island on something too. But yeah, it was great. I mean, how easy were those matches?
Oh man, piece of cake. All I had to do was go in there and shut up and listen. It was a piece of cake. Hey, Conrad, the funniest thing about the match in Cincinnati, the ring was set up on home plate.
Right.
Flair takes off out of the ring and says, "Follow me." He's on second base. He said, "Press sign me and carry me back to the ring." I said, "Are you kidding me? That's like 100 feet." So I slammed him on top of second base and walked back to the ring myself.
I was just playing with you.
Yeah. He knew at that time it was called testing the guy if he seen him blow it up yet. He knew I was getting winded because I was already hitting my 10-minute mark, which probably was my plateau. You know.
What year do you think that would have been?
Oh, it's 86 or 7.
Yeah, the summer of the Great American Bash, probably 87, 86.
Yeah.
Jim Crockett Promotions did phenomenal numbers in 1986. Animal, when you think back on your career, where does that year rank for you?
Well, the whole latter part of the 80s, from 86 on until the company was no longer in business, was the best time of my wrestling career. I mean, although, I did achieve things, went on to win WWF titles and some other titles, some Japanese ones and different things, but still, that era of wrestling, I still believe that company had, how can I say this politically, the quality and the amount of more stars, can I say, in one area. The NWA was loaded, man. You had, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, the Koloffs, you had Nikita, you had Dusty, Hawk and I, the Four Horsemen. Yeah, everybody. You had everybody in there. Your top 4 people, even though the wrestling magazines don't work, but your top in every category was all in the NWA. With the exception of Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And it was great business. And don't get me wrong. I mean, WWF had Hulk and Warrior and Andre and stuff, but still, a lot of the other stuff was a copy of what the NWA was doing at the time. I feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and, really, if you think about the Ultimate Warrior, all these guys that even Jim Hellwig, he put the paint on because of the Road Warriors. Let's get serious.
Well, when he and Sting on that tag team in the Boston territory, they painted up, and then I'll remember the conversation distinctly when Hawk saw the Ultimate Warrior's face job. That was the Hawk. If you remember that, Hawk used to paint that face and stopped painting that one because Warriors started using it. And even with Sting, when I remember sitting in Jim Crockett's office one day and they said, "Listen, we're thinking about bringing this blonde-haired guy in, and the only problem is he paints his face." And we said, "Who are you thinking about talking about, Sting?" And Jim Crockett respected Hawk and I's opinion, and he said, "Hey, if it bothers you guys, we won't bring him in." We said, "You know what? Nah, bring him in. We'll call my brothers in paint." And we did that. You remember that, Rick? We did that in the beginning.
Of course.
And then, of course, then we went off with you. I mean, you groomed him into being what he is today. But, I mean, still, if we were worried about our gimmick, we would have brought another guy with paint in back then.
Yeah, but you guys, you had to be very secure with your gimmick. I mean, God, I mean, it's like if you think about it, and I want to ask you about this too. When you guys got inducted in the Hall of Fame, I mean, it was classic. I mean, here's Paul Ellering talking. Hawk, of course, wasn't there, but you dedicated so much of it to Mike, and then, but it's just a statement as to who you guys were in the business, and I mean, your name is still, you say the Road Warriors to this day, and it's not like somebody looking around going, who? I mean, the name is still out there and still very prominent, and that's why we are elated to have you as a guest on the show today, because you guys were that special. Would you agree, Conrad?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know that there'll ever be another one. I mean, there certainly won't. I mean, from the Road Warrior pop to the paint to the shoulder pads, and there was a lot of, I don't know, they say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, and I've always wanted to know your take on Demolition. Set the record straight. Do you consider Demolition a ripoff or an homage, or what are they to the Road Warriors in your opinion, Animal?
Well, I think it's like Rick said. I think Hawk and I were very secure in what we had as a gimmick, and to be honest with you, Conrad, the truth of the matter is, Hawk and I, in essence, we were the Road Warriors. We were two guys that got taken off the street, right out of the bar, we did fight a lot. I mean, it's nothing to be proud of, but that's what we did. When we were younger, had to collect money from people that were the undesirable type, let's just say. And we knew because, listen, Barry Darsow, Smash Demolition, is one of my dearest friends. I've known Barry since I was 17 years old. But we knew when Demolition was formed, and Bill Eadie, I knew, I wrestled him as a mass superstar in the past, that now you had two wrestlers trying to portray two fighters. There's a big difference that, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I think it's easier, and I think Rick will agree, it's easier to be raw and be a fighter, and if you have talent to be able to groom into a wrestler, than it is for a wrestler to go back and try to be a shoot fighter. You know what I mean? I mean, very few could do it. I mean, Brock does it because Brock does both. He is a real fighter, and he is a wrestler. You know what I mean? But I mean, does that make sense, Rick?
If you're good at what you do, which you guys were, I don't care how many people come along and try and do something that you've already done, you're always going to be recognized as the premier team. That makes sense? I'm glad Barry and Bill made some money, and they're both good friends of mine, Barry especially. But they're never going to be considered the Road Warriors. And I don't say this with any – I'm not saying this to hurt anybody's feelings because I did see Barry and God, you know, how close, how much fun we had with Barry Darsow, my God. And me and Bill Eadie. I had a lot of fun with Bill, too. Old Blue Eyes.
Okay, Animal, in the book, you tell the story about first meeting Vince McMahon at his house. I've always been curious, what was that experience like, and why didn't you get there earlier? And then I guess I'd like for you to answer why you're not doing anything there these days.
Well, I think, you know, why we didn't go there earlier, Jimmy Crockett was nice enough to offer us a very nice contract when we were at the NWA. And with Ric Flair and Hawk and I, we were all part of that first group of guys that were going to get guaranteed money in the wrestling business. So when we went to Vince's house, you know, he did the old dog and pony show. We went to his house. He had, I think she was a Chinese chef, and Rick has been there too. He's met her, and, you know, made us food, authentic Chinese food, which is great. We had the conversation. And we said, listen, Vince, we have X amount of dollars that we need to make that we're getting guaranteed. And he came up with the old, well, all I can guarantee here is opportunity. And I said, huh. And, you know, and listen, we've been around the business a long time already. We've already been in wrestling like 10, 11 years. And, you know, when he left and walked out of the room, of course, there was Roddy Piper's freaking royalty statement right there on his desk. Like, we're not going to look at it, right? It's right in front of her. It's like 2 inches away.
Roddy Piper's what?
His royalty statement.
His royalty statement.
Oh, yeah.
Royalty statement, you know. But it was all only on the big amount. It wasn't on how much you get after you get yours. After he gets his 95% and you get yours, you know. So anyway, so we looked at it. We said, well, thank you for the opportunity, and that's when we went back and we stayed with the NWA, and we had a nice contract with them, and then that's when Demolition got formed. We weren't back a month, and then all of a sudden they came up with Demolition, you know? And
so these days, though, it's got to be a little tough, you know, with you having a brother there. I know you've had your issues with WWE, but with your brother kind of being on the inner circle, so to speak, that has to be difficult. How have you been able to manage that, and why aren't you doing more with them these days?
Well, I think Rick will tell you, and one thing that I respect about Ric Flair's opinion, Rick knows that myself more than my partner Hawk, I've always been a student of the wrestling business, right? I like to pick guys' minds, and I always made it very clear to Vince when I went and worked for WWF and WWE that when I'm done someday, I would love to be behind the scenes. I would love to be an agent, what Arn Anderson does, because Arn's got a great mind for business, or being a head coach down in Orlando, or being one of the guys that goes around to the internationally to look for talent. I think Rick will tell you that that's probably pretty much a tailor-made job for me. You know what I mean? And
yes,
don't think
I would agree totally.
I mean, I've tried 1,000 times to get back into that company since Hawk's passing for the last 13 years. And I've never burnt a bridge there. I've never had a disagreement with Vince. I have never got a disagree with his wife, with Stephanie, with Paul, with Hunter, with anybody. So I can't really tell you why I'm not there. All that I know is that there's something that went on. Maybe it was the fact. I mean, I know Hawk threatened Vince's family once or twice under duress, and I don't know if I got caught guilty by association with that. But, you know, you got to remember, Hawk and I were not something that was invented by WWF either. We were it's like Ric Flair. We were kind of like the outside a little bit. You know what I mean?
And that's the truth. We're the only people probably that came with the same, they didn't alter our identity at all. So that's one of the things
I think we are. You and us are the only two that came from the NWA or WCW days that they didn't alter. I mean, I remember point blank when we went to wrestle the Hart Foundation, and we were doing a TV up in New York City somewhere with a little Manhattan Center or something.
Right.
And Vince told us, he goes, "We're going to have to repackage you guys up here in the East Coast. Nobody knows who you are up here in the Northeast." And I looked at Vince. I said, "They don't have Turner Broadcasting up here? They don't have cable?" "Well, yeah, they do, but this is USA Network." So it's okay. So he put us against the Hart Foundation. Now, this is the first time we ever wrestled at the Manhattan Center. And the Hart Foundation were the champs. Hart Foundation were the champs. Great guys. We got along good with Brett and Jim. No problem. We went down to the ring. Rick, we had an ovation like it was going down to Philly that night or down to Baltimore.
I know. I know all about it. I know. I had just left and come back, and you guys went by. We kind of traded places.
Yeah, and the people went absolutely nuts. And I'm going, well, I guess they know who we are. And there was really no finish to the match or anything, you know. So, I mean, you know, and so I think we proved the point, and all you want to do business. Listen, were there a lot of hiccups? Yes. My partner had issues, okay? I'm the first to admit it. I admitted in my book and everything else. But, you know, it is what it is, and you shouldn't hold me responsible for his issues if that was the case. Listen, my main thing, like everybody's is, like Rick's is in this business, is to pass the torch to those who appreciate it and are qualified to carry the torch and further on the business and help the business grow. That's been my ambition since I got into it. It's been still my ambition now, man. I would love to be involved with the wrestling business somehow, some form, some way. And
well, I'm sure it'll happen. I called Johnny to get your number because I thought we traded numbers when I saw you in New Jersey, but we didn't. So I called Johnny yesterday to get your number. So, I mean, this is a pretty, Conrad, I don't think you understand. This is Joe Laurinaitis, John Laurinaitis. I mean, their brother Mark. I mean, what a great family. And I'm friends and stay close to all of them. John is not the head of talent relations anymore. If he were, he probably would bring you on. But, you know, having been there so much, Joe, it's more than political now to get a job there. I mean, and the road agent jobs those guys work their ass off, man. I mean, Conrad's gone backstage with me and he's seen it all. It's a thankless job. I know they make a nice living, but working backstage is not all you probably think it is because, man, it's a 12-hour day, and on pay-per-view weekends, it's a 12-hour day, 3 days in a row. I mean, and the guys drive sometimes as much as 300 miles a night.
Yeah.
It's not like jumping on the Falcon 10 and going to Greenville.
But you know me. I mean, it's like when I used to make the sacrifice to fly home and coach all my kids when the kids are playing sports when they're younger. I mean, I love that coaching aspect of it. And, I mean, Dusty put my name into the hat for being one of the assistant head coaches down there in Orlando, which, you know, I got family down there. Would have been up for me to move. So I wouldn't mind that. You know, any kind of thing to be involved with the company, you know, or be involved with the business. Because I think that my whole philosophy is, Rick, now, just like with yourself, if you want somebody to really become a good world champion, and I'm going to say this, and I'm giving Rick a good compliment here, Sting wouldn't have been Sting if it wasn't for Flair teaching him how to be Sting. You know, and the same goes for Hunter. Triple H learned how to be a great single wrestler because he got in the ring with Flair. You know, you learn things when you're in the ring with the best, and I think passing that information on, you can't get to the Super Bowl unless you played somebody who's been in the Super Bowl numerous times. You can't understand how it is to play in that Super Bowl unless you've been there. Same thing with tag team wrestling. I think I have a lot.
I appreciate that compliment, and I totally agree.
Well, you know, and from my end of it, for the tag team era, listen, after all these years, Hawk being gone 13 years now, and because thank God for the internet and, you know, the WWE Network, because they keep my gimmick liver, just as live today as it was when I retired. You know, the Road Warriors.
YouTube, too. Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's just as popular. So, I mean, I would love to have be able to pass on that tag team torch, because I think the tag teams need that kind of help from somebody that's been to that level of competition. That's all. That's my point with that, Conrad. I just, you know, I'm not trying to be, hey, let's pat me on the back or anybody on the back type deal. It's just that facts are facts. You don't get that position you get to in our business by accident, you know.
So Joe, I know I'm taking more of your time than I promised, but there's so much with us. So one of the greatest stories that is a lot of people don't know is when John left Japan. He applies for the job at WCW, right? Yeah. And he meets Bischoff on neutral territory. Bischoff hires him. He signs the contract. About a week later, he called. He said, "If I had known you were related to the fucking Road Warriors, I'd have never fucking hired you." No, that's because Mike told him off all the time. Mike almost beat him up one time. Once again, Joe's just guilty association.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You know, my poor brother, hey, but you know what? John's done great in his business. John's good at what he does, you know.
He's great at it.
I gotta give to John. He does a really good job of what he's, you know. Now he's involved with the whole Bella thing, and you know all about that. So you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I by the way, I've never seen him happier. I've never seen John happier. And I was just hanging out with him in jail a year or 2 years ago, so I didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I kind of been around it, you know, John's whole bear. John kept everything close to the chest, but I kind of knew about it. And you know, hey, sometimes you never know with a person. I mean, look at my situation. You never know. I never thought that my ex would be like that either, you know, but it is what it is. But John is happy now. Kathy's a great woman, you know, and everything else. And, you know, hey, it is what a crazy Christmas that would be.
I know what I was thinking, because when I saw Joe about 2 years ago, I thought he was still married to Julia. That was Joe's wife's name. And I can tell you, this is what a great guy Joe Laurinaitis, their animal, is. Julie had the septic, what's the thing called that she had because of the implants?
Fibromyalgia? Oh, yeah.
What's it called? Fibromyalgia. And almost, Conrad, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, she was in the hospital time and time again. She got really, really violently sick. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Joe, man, he was right there. I mean, on a plane, I got to go home to Julie. So I never even imagined that they had any issues. And I saw, and you know, once again, it's it's just funny how life works.
I mean, you know, it's kind of funny. You know, you find out through the grapevine what happens behind closed doors. And I've had a lot of stories from not only my kids but other friends that I do around the neighborhood. I mean, listen, it just goes to show you that the evil sometimes that pills and liquor can do to even the greatest people. But, you know, hey, that's all behind me now. That's in the past. But I got a great woman now, Kim. She's phenomenal. I couldn't be happier. I'm the happiest I've been ever in my life. Things are going great. I got 5 grandkids now.
Wow.
I mean, can you believe that?
Jesus Christ. You got more kids than I got.
I know, right? Grandpa, I'm good. You know, I got a birthday next month.
I'm Papa.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm Papa. That's what I'm called. It's funny, right? They call me Papa. You know, my grandson Jacob's 5 and Claire's 7, and I got 2 twins that are 2 years old. And then my son James's daughter, London, is going to be 2 here in about 2 weeks. So, you know, it's a great time, you know. Things are going good. Nate, you'll love this. James has texted me this morning. He got voted captain by the New Orleans Saints today again. So
wow, that's great, man. Hey, listen, I got to tell one story, and then we'll talk about James for a second and Conrad, also, Joe's daughter was the best hockey player in the state of Minnesota for several years. Did she ever play in college, Joe?
She played as she went down she had full rides, but because of GPA, she couldn't go D1, so she ended up going down to St. Olaf and got defensive rookie of the year, and then then came Jacob, so that ended the hockey career.
Yeah.
So.
No, here's the deal. So I'd go to Japan, and again, I tell two stories. It was Joe's birthday, and I can't think of the name of that steakhouse. So me, Joe, Ellering, and Hawk.
Bahama Steakhouse.
Bahama. It was Joe's birthday. My tab was $3,000 feeding that son of a bitch. Yeah, I mean, feeding Hegstrand and him and Ellering, and then, of course, eating all the garlic and drinking the beer and wine. That steakhouse was awesome. And then the next morning, and I tell people this story all the time, they think I'm full of shit. But Animal can vouch for it. We were in a 55-story hotel, and me and Ellering every morning for that whole week would go up and down the fire escape twice. Remember, Joe?
Oh yeah. I remember that.
The 500 free squats or the stair or the stairs, all the way 55 floors, man.
Pacific Hotel. Wasn't it the Pacific Hotel?
Yeah, Pacific. Yeah, that's it. Yep. Whatever. How many stories that Tucker is? Man, Ellering and I would compete every day. He didn't drink that much. It was harder on me.
No. Yeah.
But anyway, we would get there and we go to the Narita, the airport, and I would buy my kids, like a couple $1,000s worth of stuff, because you could buy stuff there that wasn't available in the States. And Mike and Joe would take all this stuff back to Minneapolis to give to David and Megan. And I'll never be able to thank you enough for that. They were so excited. And he would land and he would go home and see his family. Then he would drive over to see Megan and take her stuff and David, and I'll never be able to thank you enough for that. I mean, that's the kind of relationship we had back in those days, man. I feel sad for people that don't have that kind of relationship.
No, man, we were able to be actual friends back then. Hey, Conrad, if you can imagine when TSA looked through my bag and security and they saw 14 Cabbage Patch dolls. and a Japanese erector set with Rick. Yeah, Japanese erector set with Rick and Godzilla on it and stuff, and here I am carrying it all in my bag with my spike pads and. No, really, I'm a road warrior. I swear to God, I'm at.
That's hilarious.
They thought you were a toy salesman.
Oh, man, it was funny, bro. It was funny.
Well, we can't thank you enough for being on the show today. We appreciate you taking so much time with us. Is there anything we can promote or plug for you? A Twitter, an appearance, anything like that?
No, man. Listen, anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can get a hold of me on my Joseph Michael Laurinaitis, my Facebook page or at RW Animal on Twitter, and I do appearances all over the country. Just like Flair, I do speaking engagements. I do, whether it's high school, college football teams, or straight up motivational. Or I go to a lot of Comic Cons and I do a lot of appearances around the country. So that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. But it's a blast being with you guys too, man. It's always great talking to Nate. I kind of miss those days. You don't ever get to see the guys that you truly grew up with in this wrestling business, But, Naitch Boy is definitely one of the top class acts, Conrad. You're a lucky man to do the show with him because he helped Hawk and I grow into what we grew into, so you can't do it alone in this business, that's for sure. We were a firm believer, and I told this to Hawk many times. If I could only be as good as the guy I'm in the ring with, then I've done my job, and trying to keep up with Flair every night was definitely a job in itself.
I love you, man. Thank you, and congratulations to James. I'm glad he's with New Orleans, and I know the quarterback pretty well, Drew Brees, and I hope that works out for him. I didn't know he got married. How old is his granddaughter? How old is his daughter?
London's going to be 2 in 2 weeks.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, God bless him. Please give him my best, will you?
I will, man. I will, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all the time.
Animal, thanks, man. God bless, buddy.
Yeah. You too, man. What a rush.
You don't want to give a woman too much. You want that woman to just want you so bad. You just give her a little sense. You give her a little nudge. You give her a wink. You maybe stick your tongue out at her, but you don't give her any more than that the first time around. You want her on her hands and knees, crawling across that bar, thinking, holy shit, that's Ric Flair. Do I have an opportunity? Do I have a chance? Will he give me a shot at the title? Holy cow, it's the Nature Boy in the house. I gotta have some. Then you look at her and say, honey, remember this. None of you could ever be first, but you possibly, if you play your cards right, baby, could be next. Ooh. And that's how to be the man. And I'm Ric Flair.
This week on MLWRadio.com, MVP catches up with Shelton Benjamin. Find out what really went down on his return to the WWE on the VIP Lounge. Then, on Thursday, it's a doubleheader with an all-new Jim Cornette experience in the morning and Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling later in the day. On Friday, join the architect of WCW's 90s boom as Kevin Sullivan talks old-school wrestling and today's product on MSL and Sullivan. Plus, an all-new Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson. Get this and more, all on MLWRadio.com.
It is now time for This Week in History on The Ric Flair Show. Woo! Brought to you by MidAtlanticGateway.com. Dick Bourne is celebrating the memories of Jim Crockett Promotions every day at MidAtlanticGateway.com.
From the land of 10,000 lakes, Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Mall of America, the only building big enough to hold the debut edition of WCW Monday Nitro. We are coming to you live here on TNT. This place is like Thunderdome, folks. What a matchup we have got in store. And remember, the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan, will be here later on in this live debut broadcast. Oh, what in the hell is he doing here? Get the camera off of him. What, look. Get him out of here. Get the camera off of him. What is this?
Oh, wait a minute. He's got a right to be here. This is a public mall.
Get him out of here. Somebody call the security guards. Security and get him out of here.
What is he doing wrong? What is he doing wrong?
This is just unabashed arrogance. Wait a minute. I think we've got a major problem here.
We have a situation starting here.
Yeah. A big one. I want to know what he's doing here.
Well, don't ask me. Get on the headsets to the truck. Ask somebody.
Well, I will during the commercial break.
You were in
figure four here. The question is, does he have the stamina to do that? This has been a grueling contest. Both men have got to be feeling the fatigue. And what about Arn Anderson, the wild card? Oh, no. Arn Anderson makes his way to the ring. Wait a minute.
What's going on?
I told you, I didn't know who he was looking at. Wait a minute, I thought they patched things up, Rain.
I don't know what's going on here. What is this?
We're going to have one game right here. All over the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. And so much for patching up the family feud.
No, it's
This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
This has gotten worse.
Arn Anderson just uncorked on the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, and I do believe he jacked his jaw all the way back to the locker room.
All right, Rick, it's September 4th, 1995. We're at the Mall of America in Minneapolis. WCW is finally going to compete on Monday nights. And this is the very first Monday Night Nitro, and just like the very first Clash of the Champions, the main event, in my mind at least, the world title match, is Sting versus Ric Flair. And then, of course, a big surprise happened when Lex Luger returned to WCW unexpectedly just one day after his WWF contract expired. And I believe that was the genesis of the 90-day non-compete, which is still standard for the WWE 21 years later. And then towards the end of the match, we see you guys start a hot angle, something we thought we would never see. You and Arn Anderson start to trade some blows. What are your memories of this match and this night?
Well, first of all, I was, anytime I could wrestle Sting in the main event of something like that spectacular, which I was fortunate to do in a lot of situations, different people, but in that particular case, it was Sting. Mall of America, it was very innovative. I mean, Eric was an innovative guy. And I had about 20 minutes with him. It was great. And then we started working on this thing with Arn and I. And, of course, Arn and I only wrestled each other one time, but we stole it, Asheville, North Carolina. I think it was a Clash of Champions, if I'm not correct.
I think it was War Games. It was
War Games, that's right, because it was the guys, I remember. But we stole it. Brian Pillman interfered. It was a hell of a match, and we had a great. And those are the kind of things that you think about and remember the rest of your life.
So, a couple quick questions here. When you first hear that WCW is going to compete, and they're going to go head to head with Raw, they started holding press conferences, and you weren't at the press conferences. It was Sting, it was Macho Man, it was Hulk Hogan. You weren't there. Did you feel slighted to not be included on those press conferences?
Why would I be there? I'm just Ric Flair.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, yeah, of course I thought you were. And so now this finally happens, but do you remember where you are when you hear that, hey, we're going to compete, but we're not holding the show in an arena, we're holding it at the Mall of America? What did you think about that?
Well, I'm from Minneapolis, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty cool, being from Minneapolis. If you haven't seen the Mall of America, you haven't lived, if you like to shop. As many credit cards as you have, you couldn't get out of the Mall of America. It's that big. So I thought it was pretty innovative and had a good turnout. It's a good wrestling town, and the people responded as fans and we drew a good crowd. But as far as me, that was just the way Eric treated me. I mean, he just, they used me, but they didn't feature me in anything that was a mainline, in any kind of mainline promotion.
Would this have been an event, since it was in Minnesota, that Megan and David and your first wife would have attended, or no?
I'm actually sure they did, if I can remember correctly. They certainly came a couple other times when we wrestled at the Coliseum, but I'm pretty sure they were there for that.
So when you hear that you're going to be programmed in a storyline with Arn, would that have been an idea that you brought up, or would somebody else have brought that idea as a really hot way to make an impact on Nitro? Do you remember whose idea that was and how it came about?
I really don't. But I mean, as much as they tried to, put Arn and I behind the pack, does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's no taking Arn Anderson and Ric Flair out of the spotlight. That ain't going to happen.
And we're in the spot.
I mean, to this day, we do signings together, and the people that turn out for them, I'm thankful for every one of them, but it's ridiculous the amount of respect they show us. So it's a good deal for Arn and I, and we signed together. Actually, we're doing the Four Horsemen thing October 29th in Pittsburgh, and they're expecting, almost 1,000 people for it. So it's a good deal.
It's a great deal, and if you're a Horseman fan, you should go hit it up. J.J. Dillon will be there, Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, Barry Windham. It's the whole gang, and who knows how many times we're going to get that gang together. So you should definitely check that out if you live anywhere in the Pittsburgh area, October 29th. And on the other side, be sure to check out this week's Ask Naitch and our voicemail of the week, and you do not want to miss the voicemail. We'll be right back.
Woo!
Woo!
Don't miss a minute of The Ric Flair Show. Subscribe on iTunes now. The Ric Flair Show.
My name's Ric Flair.
Woo! And now, more Ric Flair.
Hit me.
Ask Naitch, brought to you by LootCrate.com/Flair. Get exclusive WWE swag you can't get anywhere else right now at LootCrate.com/Flair. And use promo code Flair to get $3 off your WWE Slam Crate. If you'd like to ask Rick a question, just tweet using hashtag AskNaitch, and we could ask your question next week on the show.
All right, Rick, let's go ahead and get to this week's question for hashtag AskNaitch. It comes to us from Lance Cossey on Twitter. He's on Twitter at Ito, ITO316. Huge fan of the show from day one. Tweets about the show constantly. We appreciate your support, Lance. He asks, watching 85 NWA, why was Buddy Landel allowed to use Nature Boy as a moniker in JCP while Rick was there? That's a good question, and something I never really considered because, you know, usually you don't want someone to use your finisher or anything like that. Now here's a guy using your moniker, the Nature Boy, while you're there and the champ. How did that come about?
And, you know, I don't know, but people have worried about that, and I've heard that a lot over the years. It didn't bother me because he wasn't the Nature Boy. It's kind of like Animal said, you know, the greatest form of flattery. And I liked working with Buddy. He was a good performer. He just had a lot of personal issues. But, you know, they put JJ with him against me, and we drew some money with it. It was fun. But go ahead.
The Landel feud led to some really phenomenal interviews. Probably your most famous. It's so hard for me to sit back here listening to a guy out here hollering my name, blah, 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 spilt liquor.
Yeah.
And then you guys had a couple of different matches that are now kind of underground sensations. Bruce Mitchell from The Torch wrote a fantastic piece for our friends at the Mid-Atlantic Gateway all about this. Dick Bourne has written about it. The time the two Nature Boys actually had matches. One was at Dorton Arena that people still talk about. Why don't you think that was more of a featured program? It seems like, you know, years later when you would see this sort of thing, and I know it's a different concept, but The Undertaker versus The Undertaker was a big deal for the WWF. It seems like a natural fit that this would have been a pay-per-view type match for Landel and Flair over the Nature Boy thing. Why do you think that never happened?
I think the answer to that is, and I wish I could have him on a show because I don't know that. I think that they were afraid of his personal issues.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
To promote it longer because he did have some issues that, you know, and thank God that they did not result in his death, but he did have some issues along that way. But the first time I saw Buddy in Puerto Rico, I said the kid's got it. He had a great look, good body, legitimately strong, a good athlete, and he could work. So, I mean, I was all about it. I mean, I didn't, once again, like Animal said, and, you know, a lot of other people will say, often imitated, never duplicated. You know what I mean? He's wearing a $300 robe, and I'm wearing a $10,000 robe. What are you going to say?
Well, we've got some imitations and some dollar amounts to discuss here on our voicemail of the week. Stay tuned. All right, even after all these years, the Nature Boy Ric Flair is still limousine riding and jet flying to a town near you. And I'm talking to you, Rahway, New Jersey. He's going to see you this Saturday for WrestlePro at the Rahway Rec Center, September 10th. The next day on September 11th, he's headed back to Arlington. He'll be at Fishbone Bar and Grill for the VIP tailgate right across from Cowboy Stadium for Cowboys Giants. And then on September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, the return to Flair Country. Big Time Wrestling's bringing him in on Thursday, the 22nd, to Morgantown, North Carolina. The very next day, on the 23rd, he'll be in Raleigh, North Carolina, once again in Dorton Arena. And then on the 24th, don't miss him at the Spartanburg Memorial Auditorium. It's Saturday, September 24th, 6 o'clock bell time. The Nature Boy's coming to your town, and you can keep up with the dates at RicFlairShow.com and click the Appearances tab at the top. Now back to more Ric Flair Show.
Voicemail of the week, brought to you by Jerome Fisher Voiceovers. Hey, that's me. Let's see, we do voiceover, production, narration, documentary, e-learning. It's a one-stop shop. If you'd like to be the next voicemail of the week, call the Ric Flair Show hotline, 844-RIC-SHOW. Leave your name, city you're from, and your hot take. If you got what it takes to style and profile on the show, call now. Toll free, 844-RIC-SHOW. Now, here's this week's voicemail of the week.
Hello, this is Sam Mushnick, President Emeritus of the St. Louis Wrestling Club. You'll have to excuse me if there's a bad connection, but I'm calling from the grave where I'm currently spinning. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Flair for his paying homage to the great tradition of professional wrestling in St. Louis. None of these other podcasters who consider themselves experts gives or knows two shits about St. Louis wrestling. So thank you to Mr. Flair. My question is, Mr. Flair, do you have any recollection of endorsing check number 30268 in the amount of $7,300 over to PT's Showcase in East St. Louis, Illinois? That represented your share of the gate from my retirement show. First of all, I would not think a NWA World Heavyweight Champion would frequent such establishments, and I would not think that you would sign over your entire paycheck to a shake dancing establishment. Thank you for your time.
All right, Rick, this is the first time we've had a call from beyond the grave. That's really long distance there. Mr. Sam Mushnick wants to know, what's the deal? Do you remember signing over a $7,300 check to PT's Showcase in East St. Louis? I assume this is what I would refer to as the ballet, what Bruce Pritchard would refer to as the shoe show. I think you get the gist of this type of establishment. Does that sound like something you would have been into ever in your life?
No. I'm not a ballet guy. I told you that, right?
Oh, so you've never been to the ballet? Are you going to lie to all our listeners?
If I'm going to do something like that, I want to be the ballet. I want to be in the rotation. I'm not giving any chick $20. I'm sorry. Much less 100. Not for that, anyway.
Well, I've seen you sort of say before that I'm not going to give you money to take your clothes off, but I'll give you money to watch me take my clothes off.
Yeah, I did use that line a few times. Pure Platinum of Memphis, Tennessee. Here we go. Woo-woo.
So that's not a ballet? That sounds like a ballet.
Yeah. Well, I had a bad. It just ran by with the guys.
Just had a few drinks.
Beale Street was dead.
Well, we're not dead. We're having a good time here on the Ric Flair Show, and we want to go ahead and plug everybody who helped put this show together. We need to start first with Road Warrior Animal. If you're listening to this show, you need to go follow him on Twitter right now. He's apparently not been very active on Twitter until recently, but now he's all over it, and he's a great follow at RW Animal. So catch him on there. You don't want to miss his appearances. I had the opportunity to catch up with him in Charlotte at the NWA Legends Fan Fest a month ago. He is phenomenal to see in person, so if you get an opportunity to do so, please do that. Of course, you can support the show at Ric Flair Show, at MLW is our home, at MA Gateway. And I think I mentioned earlier, they've got some fabulous pieces about Buddy Landale and the Road Warriors on their site. Just last year, Bruce Mitchell, The Torch, did a great piece on the Gateway about the Battle of the Nature Boys, and you should go out of your way to see it at MidAtlanticGateway.com. Of course, at Jerome Fisher VO is our master of ceremonies when it comes to making us sound different from every other wrestling podcast around. So if you want your stuff to stand out, hit him up on Twitter at Jerome Fisher VO. And of course, First Family Mortgage at 1FMC.com is where you can find them, or on Twitter at 1FMC. They can go ahead and save you some cash. But our favorite plug of the week, it's Melinda and the fine folks at Legacy Talent. It's at Legacy Talent LLC. And Rick, we don't normally schedule these a week out, but you've already got a guest lined up for next week. Are we going to get in trouble with this guest? I feel like we might.
No, but we can't tell you who it is. No, we can't do that. You know, we can't. We don't want to give him too much, Conrad.
The world of MLW Radio never stops.